Welcome back to the show. We're about to learn the secret sauce.
Sauce me up. I'm ready. Pour it on.
Cool. Taylor, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having
coming
me.
down the hill to come join us for a conversation about open source.
It's fun. Hey, anytime that happens, I want to be here.
Yeah. So we've been talking with industry leaders, folks that have impact in open source, but also folks who are up and coming in open source as well. You're like all the above. You've got quite the history, and I figured we go through that to start with. But did you want to start with who are you to the audience?
Yeah. So howdy, everybody. My name's Taylor. I've worked at places like Disney, the Cleveland Clinic, American Greetings, HashiCorp, and now I'm at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So.
Okay, I want to hone into the American Greetings. American Greetings. American Greetings, which is like the cards.
Yeah.
So what did you do there?
I just worked on a whole bunch of card copy. I worked on the content team there. So all of the stuff that went into the cards was mostly what we worked on, a lot of artwork and some other things as well. All the systems that stored that and then sourced that online. But did you know they own IP for Care Bears and Strawberry Shortcake?
No.
No, I had no idea before I joined.
Since the beginning of Care Bears? That's them?
Yeah. I was just like, wait, what?
And they were all this greeting card company.
Yeah, and they do papyrus and all these other things too. I just said, that's weird trivia. I never get asked, but clearly, I want to.
So you went from Care Bears to Disney. Yeah. So what'd you do at Disney then?
At Disney, I worked with the studios team. So I led the SRE team, basically moving an operations team into the SRE mindset, trying to rethink how we were doing patching and engagement with different teams, and then working a lot within inner source kinds of concepts and concerns. So we had a platform team that was making products, and then it was all about, that went to our team to adopt and then to kind of sell to these internal teams. But that was near the end of my career. I started working with the International Theatrical Distribution Group, which tongue twister. Don't try to say that 5 times.
I could barely say American Greetings.
That was a really cool group. They had really incredible products too that would track movie theaters and all the movie theaters in the world, which is managed by a MongoDB database.
Really?
At least at the time when I was there. Yeah.
Wow.
Smell-o-vision, 4D, time seats, all of those.
Is Smell-o-vision still a thing?
It's in some places. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was just listening to 99% Invisible, and they were talking about Smell-o-vision in its inception, and I always thought it was just a joke on The Simpsons of all places.
Yeah,
but it turns out it's actually a real thing.
It's that, the Aunt Anne's, buttered pretzel smells and all those. Yeah, I was not a fan of the ones that would shoot you with water in the face. This is not my scene.
Excellent. Yeah, so I guess we could zoom out a little bit or go closer to the beginning. Like, how did you get involved in open source?
Yeah, so open source was always something I had been, frankly, really intimidated by, right? Because I thought from my earlier days, 16 to 18 to early 20s, I always thought that it was people that were, really smart, don't touch this. You have to really be intentional, know exactly what you're going to do. And then the more that I grew up and got to work and talk with people, the more I saw, I was like, no, we're just trying to do our best. Sometimes we don't get that right, and other times we do, but it's always a discussion. So it's not like you're doing this thing alone. And so that was, I think, the biggest learning on that front. But once I started to work, so my family situation was parents got divorced. I was living with my mom for a while, and so we just didn't have a lot of money, and so I did a lot with Visual Basic 6 and .NET, and so I could work with .NET and other things at school.
Just for fun as a kid? I don't know a lot of VB kids.
Yeah, it's clearly messed up. I love vacuuming and cleaning. Something is wrong with me, clearly. But yeah, I loved doing that, just playing around with label clicks and button clicks, all those events and whatnot. But also, I didn't know anything about UX or UI. I'd make neon green forms. Don't do that. That's atrocious. But did that for a while. And then when I started to look at colleges and wanted to do this stuff on my own, it was very cost prohibitive. I didn't have $3,000 when I was 14. Yeah. And so I started to look at open source and PHP and these other technologies when I couldn't go to ASP.NET and web forms and all those things. So that really kicked it off for me. And then Ruby on Rails came along, and then Go, and then Rust, and then just kind of open source at large. Ruby made open source a lot more accessible for me,
Yeah.
especially working at the Cleveland Clinic. I was always told by recruiters when I'd look for jobs like, Taylor, just pick one. It's .NET or it's Java. You just stick within those camps. And I was like, I don't like that. I want something else.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. But yeah, that was really my start, was just kind of like I was pushed into it in the best way possible, and then found so many people willing to spend time to go over that with me, which I thought was really the best part of open source.
What's your take on the Ruby community now? Because I feel like machine learning's always been the thing. So now it's got like even more energy. And I know a lot of Rubyists that went to Go, and now a lot of Rubyists that are doing Rust. So like, what's going on with Ruby?
With Ruby, I've seen the same thing, like folks going to Crystal and other languages too, and really just trying to figure out something that captures that same fit as far as the syntax of the language, and just I've liked, what was it, _y described as like, I think he said it was like writing poetry rather than writing code, which that's what really stuck for me when I was working with that. I still have Ruby's where I grew up. I don't write in it so much anymore, but if I do need to pull something down or write a quick script, I'll typically go for that, or Go or something like that. I saw Python came out with Mojo recently, so really just interesting syntactical space. But yeah, I know tons of folks still using Ruby, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. Much like Jenkins, CI/CD, and all these other things too that might feel a little bit more antiquated, but just make things accessible.
Like fun fact, my interview at GitHub, I wrote my technical screen in Ruby. It took me 15 minutes out of like the 45 minutes that was allotted to it, and I did it intentionally because I'm like, I don't need to think about this. I know I can type it and it will work. And then like write tests with it as well is also pretty approachable. So I also started my career professionally in Ruby. I was always like a copy and paster in Perl and JavaScript and stuff like that, but got the finance degree and went into sales and then learned how to code in Ruby. And great language, great community.
It is. It really is. And just seeing like how Ruby gems worked, Heroku definitely had a big part in that too, as far as being able to deploy your thing, that you're working on. So that without that, I think it would have been really difficult. The tool set around it was just phenomenal, and it influenced so many other languages and tooling and so on and so forth. Yeah,
and it's also like it helps break that myth of like, oh, it's open source is a bunch of people who are going to gatekeep or going to gaslight you into not doing it, basically. And it was a welcoming community for me when I first started going to like the conferences and the meetups and got a job and no longer write Ruby. Like I write Ruby every now and then to do like a quick script, but JavaScript is like where I sort of really accelerated my career. Cool. And I think the evolution that we're seeing right now in things like TypeScript and like Crystal and Mojo and Kotlin for Java is, I think it's needed, like the like a new energy into a lot of different ecosystems and making things more approachable.
That's where I completely agree. I think that there were like sad moments moving on from Ruby, and I've seen the same thing within Python and the GIL and how it's compiled or how it works. But I think it was memory issues is what we faced a lot with when I worked at the Cleveland Clinic, and we had a whole bunch of tests and assessments coming in, and even like accelerometer data that we would capture at like several hundred hertz, which is like hundreds of times in a second, which also don't do that. I think 60 hertz like is just fine. But we had like 10 meg payloads coming across the wire, and it was just Ruby would fall over really easily, whereas Go wouldn't. And so it's interesting to see now with Rust that memory safety and just seeing what is important within the language, and then kind of making sure that you're using the right tools for the right problems. I think I've always liked that discussion with people getting really interested about language design or which one are you using, and they're like, it doesn't matter.
That's true. It's as well. It's like I think what I enjoyed about GitHub engineers and like folks hiring at GitHub is it's not about being a Rubyist or about being a gopher, I guess. I was going to say a goist, but yeah, a gopher. It's more about like, can you solve problems, and have you seen this before? And that's like we're currently interviewing for open source, and as we approach these questions, it's like less about are you a Go person or a Rust person? It's more of like, hey, here's our problem, and have you seen this before? And like, how would you approach this?
It's the way I like thinking about it is almost like a kaleidoscope too, and just like all the layers kind of like just enmeshing over one another. And I love seeing everybody's different take on it too. Even people coming from being physicists into software engineering or musicians. Just I love how people's minds work in that way, and they're able to like, oh, I didn't think you could do this with that, or this, have this language actually execute in this way. But fascinating how people are able to assemble and create these things.
Yeah, excellent. So open source, you got to cut your teeth on, you got to sort of grow your career. So like, what was the evolution of like Taylor today? Like, I know you spent some time at HashiCorp, and so like, where did open source take you?
So I'd say, so I started working with open source in earnest, I want to say like 2015, 16, those Ruby on Rails days, and working with gems. I think just seeing that you could have that, like, oh, this S3 interaction doesn't work for me. Like, oh, I can go in and fix this. Oh my gosh, I can do this little thing and it will help, at least me, but seeing that it helped other people too, I think was magical. So that's kind of where I got my first taste of it. But when I moved into the Cleveland Clinic, we were containerizing things and really just trying to push the needle on how we worked with healthcare and cloud computing.
Yeah.
And so there weren't a lot of vendors or spaces, or, we have like a gov offering for many clouds, but there isn't like a specific healthcare one that deals with HIPAA data. So that was really interesting. When we were running containers, we're like, how do we do this? Is it an Ansible playbook? How do we actually manage this? And Kubernetes came about then. Actually saw somebody, it's funny because it's not what I'd recommend you use Kubernetes for now, but saw somebody stand up WordPress on Kubernetes at a meetup locally that I saw.
Okay.
And I was like, this is going to change everything.
Here in LA?
In Cleveland.
In Cleveland? Okay.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the persistent volume will come back, and amazing. And so started working with that. Couldn't really get the team buy-in at the time. That it was just like, there's too many buzzwords. There's Mesos, there's Docker Swarm. It's like, let's wait to see what shakes out of this. And so at that time, things kind of started to taper off, level off. And so started interviewing, wanted to come out to the West Coast, and Disney was one of those options. I went to hired.com. And
shout out to hired.com.
It's phenomenal. It was so many interviews, but worth it. And so clearly it's great to be out here. But Disney's like, we're doing some forward-thinking things. I'm like, oh, okay, is that like some Ruby on Rails things, or like, is that what you think is cool, or is that what's really cool within the space that I know about? And no, it was really cool. They were like, we want you to come in and implement Kubernetes. We want to have a common language in working with teams. And so getting that adoption was critical within Disney and within studios for all of our app teams there. But once we had started to kind of get a good handle on that, it was about, how do we give back? How do we have a better insight into what's actually going on, so that we're not just adjusting to new features coming out, or like, we just don't want to be whim to the winds of change blowing around us. We want to be a part of the winds blowing. Yeah. And so that's where I started to jump into, I want to become a CNCF ambassador, and I had a huge backlog, so that happened later, in my story. But that was me thinking, oh, that's open source. That's how I can speak on behalf of myself. And then it was difficult with Disney and legal stuff and things like that. So I wanted that safe space to be able to work with someone or something, some entity. And it was the CNCF. And so that didn't work out for a while, and just started to lose a little bit of hope. But then somebody reached out about working within the Kubernetes release team and being a shadow. I think it was 114. And so I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's how I channel this energy. And so then I got to learn from so many more people, eventually leading a Kubernetes release. And the moment that I made that decision, the tough days at Disney were beautiful ones when I went home, because I was able to work on that project, meet these people. It really just...
Yeah, you hang up the tie and you put on the cape at night, and...
It was great, It's just lit up by my computer screen. Yeah, I didn't need a telephone booth, but the computer in my desk was enough.
That's so cool. So today, like, Kubernetes is like, it's the choice for orchestration. So it was like good timing on your part. And I honestly knew Docker was like 2012, 2013. Maybe I'm off by a couple years. So Kubernetes didn't really come into the scene until mid 2010s.
I think it was like what the CNCF like officially started around, I think it was early 2015, but didn't like really get realized until 2016. With the donation of Kubernetes and all that stuff. But it was, it really just worked out timing wise. But that's my recommendation to anyone, is just, if you're on the fence, just do it. I'm a playful, helpful push over that because
Yeah.
it's a great resume to build.
Yeah. That's like literally our next step with our platform is how do we orchestrate some of the sort of indexing we're doing, and Kubernetes is the question mark that we're exploring right now. But you mentioned in passing CNCF ambassador. Like, what's a CNCF? Because I don't think we actually even clearly stated that. But then tell me about this ambassador program.
Yeah. So the CNCF is the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and it's an open source foundation under the Linux Foundation. And it's not just alphabet soup. So they house projects like Kubernetes, Prometheus, OpenTelemetry, Backstage, Argo, all of these really popular open source projects. And when you're an open source project, you have to have funding and be able to like push against patent trolls or different legalities, or be able to handle administrivia, essentially. And the goal is to make it easier for maintainers. At the end of the day, just eliminate that friction in managing a project. And then kind of letting people know about that, creating assets to educate and help folks out. So that's the goal. And the official mission statement of the CNCF is to make cloud native computing ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So it sounds cool, but that's what that really is. It's like education, working with people, building communities.
Yeah, I feel like I have to ask what cloud native computing is, because I know there's someone listening that's like, okay, not alphabet soup, but also I don't know what that acronym is.
Yeah. So that's running your applications that you're writing in different programming languages and such on different clouds like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc.
Yeah, it's like it's the modern stack. It's almost like taken for granted today, because I feel
it is.
The ramp up, like post my college years, we started seeing more ubiquity for like AWS. Like it was a thing you heard of, but then the time it clicked for me was when Instagram got acquired.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, of course they were able to scale so quickly. It's a small team because they were using AWS and S3.
Even Netflix and streaming, when they're like trying to figure out like post DVD era.
Yeah. Honestly, I gotta think. I gotta have Sid come on and talk about his experience at early days Netflix. But no, it's the whole thing of, you mentioned open source, of there are people who have solved problems, but there's an opportunity to go fix things. There's opportunity to build up the sort of platform of, I don't have to know about orchestration because I use a lot of things like Netlify and Vercel. So that gives me orchestration to make my deploys happen. So I can go solve another harder problem, like in the front end of the UI. And I think with the cloud, it gave us, once we figure out how to like interact with it, and credits became a thing, we're able to like really roll the dice and like try big, heavy lifting things because, it's in the cloud.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that, because it's not funny. It's actually like super serious and cool.
Very serious.
So many folks are trying to figure out that developer experience now, because now that Kubernetes has gotten to that level of maturity, and it's just an easy thing for folks to pull down, even if it's not directly something that people work with. Like you might run that on the back end or create a platform that sits in front of your development team or people writing code, making applications, and you're pushing to that. You're eliminating the friction, so you don't have to know all the umpteen thousands of features that Kubernetes has or how to set that up. We've started to see contributions to Kubernetes directly dip down, and that's not because it's not popular. It's just because the innovation is happening in other places. Like overall, Cloud Native Computing Foundation project contributions are up and to the right, essentially. But it's in places like OpenTelemetry, Argo, Backstage, it's these other problems that now we can start to take a look at. To exactly your point.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm thinking of an anecdote or analogy. It's like, I was on a podcast recently. They were talking about how, like, is AI going to basically take away jobs? And I don't think there'll always be somebody who's going to have to plug in the data and have to massage the data to make it work, but also build the platform and the UI on top of the AI. Yep. So all the pieces around the machine learning that's happening, you still have to build. And you have to build that infrastructure. And like maybe AI builds it for you. And then we go move on something else. Like we just make it purple at that point.
Yeah.
But I think my reaction is that in the mid 1900s, 20th century, when the microwave came out, it didn't like ruin cooking. Like people they had a choice. Do you want it quick, or do you want to still cook your own meals and get your own food and grow your own vegetables? And like that's still an option for people. And you see the resurgence of people wanting going back to the analog era or the records. Like that's still a thing. just less people do it. And there's like a higher quality that you could sort of like, if you want to be an expert at your craft, go build Kubernetes and understand that. But if you want to be an expert at UI UX, like don't worry about Kubernetes.
There was a talk I saw recently of somebody talking about AI and just in the storyteller and artist sense, because it has a lot of those folks worried because they are the people writing the stories, the pros. And
well, currently on strike right now at the time of this recording.
Yeah. It's so many folks are just worried about that. And I heard that argument structured in a way such that saying, if we think back in terms of human history and when we were having different sessions at the Greek Parthenon and like delivering all of these beautiful plays and productions, there weren't sound designers.
Yeah.
There weren't really lighting folks, you
No.
know, like not to the state that we have today. And so what AI is going to be able to do in a positive sense is create more roles and opportunities for people. It's like you said, it's the microwave not taking away the art or the craft. It's just another tool to use in the flow of that. And open source
Yeah.
very much the same way. Same thing is happening with Kubernetes
Yeah.
and all these other things. It's like, what part of the stack do you really care about, or what do you want to see more in or of?
Yeah, and the illusion of the full stack developer is, I mean, it's even more clear that I don't know Kubernetes the way that I could know it if I spent way more time. But I had an inflection point when I joined Netlify to either do the front end code or hang out with all the back end devs. And I didn't choose; they chose for me. Go write JavaScript. But that was an experience that like I had an opportunity to understand Kubernetes and the way we're using it, and understand on how to like run it locally and ask questions. David Calavera was the CTO. He was also at Docker previously. So I got to learn all about Docker during that job. Am I an expert at any of that? No. But can I read documentation and have a good handle of if I needed, like, I know how to change the oil in my car. Well, technically I drive a Tesla, so there's no oil. But I know how to change the oil. I can change tires. But I choose not to because I want to do something else. I want to get home and go work on that project I've been thinking about all day instead of, figure out how to get in the car.
And I love that. It's I feel like for so long we have like looking back at the 50s and 60s, 70s, and as time's gone on, you've seen people have to have this deep focus because you didn't have the internet. It was like an encyclopedia that maybe got updated twice in your life, like just a bunch of box of books, or you have to go to the library or something like that. So there wasn't really that opportunity to learn or just focus on just the snippets that you wanted to. Now we have a lot more opportunity to do that. And so I'm the same as you. I kind of felt there's some times where I'm like, I really should go deep with this. And I felt bad and guilty I haven't been able to. But the more that I grow and learn and see, the more I'm excited about like, no, this is great. This is like the montage of my favorite things. So why wouldn't I want to do that? It's so much more fun.
Yeah. Life is short and like you could spend all the time, honing your craft and only owning that, or you can grow and excel in the next thing. And like my career, it sounds like you had like quite a tour of different places. And like, in my career, in my path has always been, I'm going to learn how to solve the problem and not focus on the tools itself. Like, and it's nothing against people who want to focus on the tools because we need tool builders.
100%. Yeah, there are roles for everybody. That's what's so, yes.
Yeah, and you had mentioned your time at Disney. I was actually thinking about, I know Chick-fil-A is a popular company in the cloud native computing. And I was listening to a podcast when they were talking, I forgot the engineer, but they were talking about how the ordering system, like, have you been Chick-fil-A recently? It's like the lines are always around the block or whatever. And they have like the iPads out and like they've evolved fast food where it's like, where normally fast food, it's like you wait. Fast food for them is like, it's fast food and it's powered by Kubernetes.
I've talked to a couple of folks working on infrastructure over there. I think Brian Chambers was his name. Fascinating in how they've been able to put those things together and then set up their like POS systems and everything in the restaurants. And I think even hearing about their intention behind the support team and not wanting it to be 40,000 people, it should just be we have a small lean team focused on solving the problem. And a team that's able to support that well. And amazing what they've been able to do. Funny with Chick-fil-A too. There's that culture of niceness I've heard too. So it can
My
be
pleasure.
It could be difficult to say that there's a problem, and the same thing existed at Disney too. So I get little hints of that too in open source, but I feel like people are a little bit more frank and upfront. There's that.
At Disney, did they have postmortems or was it called something else?
Yes, it was called other things. Yeah, it's just like retrospective. Does that sound better? Like, yeah, that's good. Let's market test it. Let's see.
Amazing. Yeah. So going back to the CNCF, so we talked about cloud native computing and the CNCF, but like, can we talk more about the sort of infrastructure, membership, and
Of
like
course.
how companies like Chick-fil-A interact with the CNCF?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. So with open source, that's free, right? So how is all this stuff happening? There's so yeah, no such thing as a free lunch. You know, talking
Yeah.
about Chick-fil-A and everything else. It's so there's a couple different ways in which folks get involved. There's people that just use and consume open source, and that's typically we have this contribution ladder, this concept within the Linux Foundation. I love it. You know, I would haven't gotten a tattoo or anything like that of it on my arm, or but
Still time.
it's like I'm still young. I got yeah. There's it's people that will pull things down and consume the projects, and that's you have to start that way.
Yeah.
The next is by getting a little bit more involved, and then you start contributing back. And so just getting the sense for, okay, this works for me, but couldn't it work a little bit differently? And then forgive me, I'm blanking on the ladder two of this the ladder.
Is it the leader, maintainer, something in that realm?
Yeah, it's like maintainer and then like expert, or it's just like showing that level of progression. And so different folks will land at different spots on that ladder, but you can come and join the CNCF as a member, and then there are different tiers and levels there. So you might have folks that want to get involved and then make use of getting KubeCon tickets and training and certification, or interacting with different user groups that are just for members. So it's an interesting thing to try to navigate how to make membership beneficial to folks too, because it is open source and truly we want everything to be open, but by making membership worthwhile, what does that look like? Is that gated content? It's like, that feels weird being an open source. You know, if it were trends or something else, okay, maybe. If it's networking events, that makes a little bit more sense too, but it's an interesting space to try to develop out. And literally I'm meeting with folks next week, flying to Portland and discussing that strategy with them. So
Yeah.
really fun. There's events. That one's always a little bit more straightforward, a little bit easier, like the KubeCons and specific events for CNCF projects that we host. And then training and certification is the other one on that front too. So we don't have individual like person memberships just yet, just because we haven't really, it doesn't seem like that would work well within our community. Makes more sense to have companies kind of buying on that front or run events to create that revenue. But the reason we exist is such that we can have a vendor neutral conversation. Like you're not feeling like it's one entity like really pushing on a feature set, or like trying to make fetch a thing, if you've seen that movie. Just like, why are you trying to make this happen? There isn't really that momentum behind it.
Yeah, literally Node made fetch a thing. So that's a bad joke. Yeah, but yeah, so I mean it makes sense too as well. It's like the individual themselves, like they definitely want to level up, and I think the opportunity there is if you participate or join a company involved in the organization, it becomes a nice place where you can get the expertise and get the sponsorship to level up as well. Because like I worked at GitHub, and we have a board member on the JS Foundation from my former team, and I think there's a lot of, well, previously they've moved on to Shopify, but Rails core team as well, and like having access to knowledge is like, that's really what's needed. I think it's good that it's vendor neutral as well, because I know Kubernetes came out of Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like I always thought of it as a Google project. Google has their thing that is GKE, but the fact that it's gifted, that innovation can happen on top of Kubernetes, and now we have like a standard for orchestration. Well, I don't want to call it a standard if it's not a standard, but to me as an outsider, it feels like a standard. But now we get to go work on some other problems, and I've actually recently seen a slew of startups building on top of Kubernetes to do the orchestration layer. So not necessarily just to deploy websites, but to do almost anything when it comes to orchestrating.
It's really interesting when you start looking at it as a community that feeds into one another too, because it's very much all these different effects taking place. Like vendors want you to be within the cloud native space because they are able to sell you product and compute, right? So you have these what we call end users, and those are the folks that I work more specifically with. End user is a little bit of a general term, and so it's always an elevator pitch when I describe that to folks. And what that is, are people that are adopting and using CNCF projects to power their businesses without reselling them directly. So those are folks like Intuit, Mercedes-Benz, Airbnb.
Got it.
They're not selling you cloud native product, but they are running a service, or they're monetizing in a different way. So those are the folks that I'm working with because they're the ones that want specific features. They're the ones that are adopting and using these projects.
Yeah, they're in the consumer layer.
Exactly.
Or the layer, the base of your pillar.
And we're starting to see like services groups too, like they aren't considered end users because they're a consultancy and they can kind of like make a decision or call in a certain way. So there could be some undue influence there. But in most cases, they're working with end users. So they also bring a different perspective to the table, despite being classified as vendor members right now. So
did the CNCF do like a bit of work? Because like on the West Coast, all the companies here are more than likely touching a cloud native product. But when you think of like some of the legacy, I'm trying to think like John Deere, but they're probably already part of the ecosystem. But some of the more legacy companies at least in the US, I'm thinking of like maybe in the farm manufacturing. Is there like outreach to level up those companies in the cloud?
Yeah. So the CNCF is comprised of 3 pillars, essentially. There's the governing board, and they're the folks that handle the very fun things. I'm saying an asterisk, shout out to them. Love you.
Governing board sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'll take 2.
Yeah, the spreadsheets and budgets and things like that. Like, I'm so happy that they take care of that and handle that and kind of set a direction and focus for the organization, like where we're going to pool funds and time. There's a technical oversight committee, and they decide the technical direction of the organization, which projects are coming in, are they graduating to different levels, and then the end user pillar, and those are the folks using and consuming on that front. So when it comes to outreach, that's at the forefront of our concerns. We want to be at conferences, we want to be accessible, we want to be meeting people where they're at, because what we're seeing is that people aren't able to jump on flights and just jump around the world, make it to KubeCons in a lot of cases, or these events that we put on. So we've been focusing a lot more on more local events and giving people the chance to interact with one another, because that outreach needs to happen. And to grow, you need that outreach, you need that exchange of ideas. So it's, also the farming stuff has been fascinating with what they've done it's like, there's like no farmers anymore. It's all computers and just like, it's wild to see that.
Yeah. I mean, talk about disruption. Like a lot of manufacturing, farming is now automated, but probably will also get impacted through AI. I guess there's a lot of pushback around like AI trucking as well. Another opportunity where if the roads are safer from computers, I've actually heard a lot of people push back of like, maybe no one should be driving. Like we all just sort of pushed a button, which is like, this is now the world is sort of, I don't know, Blade Runner, did they drive in Blade Runner? But basically like one of the systems where our cars are flying and it's autopilot everywhere. And we just trust that someone made the right decision in the machine.
So I also drive a Tesla, and so that was the scariest, but most like I was like fighting my lizard brain, like part of myself, like do I turn? Do I? Yeah. But it's interesting to see where that level of comfort fits in, and I didn't minor or anything like that in psychology, but it fascinates me so deeply, and so understanding like why am I uncomfortable with this, and just like digging into that from a human aspect is.
I was very nervous. So I don't have full self-driving, but I have the Autopilot, and took a drive to Las Vegas. And I think on the way back, you go through the hills and like sort of like windy, and Tesla keeps you like right in the middle of the lane, and very uncomfortable on a hill. I had to take over.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I was just like I've driven to Cleveland and back. Los Angeles to Cleveland and back, and it did add like a 9 hours to the trip because of charging and everything, but there was a scary point too because it has that regenerative braking where it's going to charge your battery back up, and was going through Nevada, and my battery was going to run out just like on paper. I was like, I have 11% back, there's no way I'm going to make it with that many miles, and so on and so forth, and ended up it was right. No, I was going downhill the whole time, and I got like back up. I recharged my battery a bit, and then I was able to get to the place, but freaked me out as like the numbers worked out.
Yeah, trust the process. That is amazing. Like, what's your thought on this whole, like, have you done any AI work? Like this side project fun? Like, what have you done so far?
Oh, so much. It's, I think that honestly, the most fun I've had with it has been, I've been able to get through my LinkedIn backlog of messages so fast.
So I just like, I declared bankruptcy there.
It's like I'm actually accessible again. So that's helped. But the funniest thing I've done with that is everyone has friends or acquaintances they've known from 10, 20 plus years ago. Maybe they want you to join an MLM from high school or something like that. And so I got something, a message from a friend I hadn't spoken to in a while, and I fed it to Chat GPT, and I said, write me a non-committal answer. And it's just like, hey, that's cool. Wow. And did a really good job.
Oh man, this is going to ruin relationships.
It's very funny. I've had it dissect things too, where somebody has expressed something to me and might not be clear. And so you can actually ask it like, could you take a shot at this, Chat GPT? It's like, well, here's what I think they're saying. It's like that, voice in your ear, person on your shoulder.
I enjoyed, I use Superhuman. So I emailed the founder. I'm like, hey, I would love to get access to this thing. It would be amazing. Cause I'm copy and pasting and putting in Chat GPT and then replying back.
Yeah, just streamline that.
Yeah, streamline it. I'll pay the extra $4 or whatever. And yeah, it's been amazing. And we actually, so today, Monday, we're going to ship a Chrome extension that's going to be AI on GitHub. And our first feature, which we shipped already, is generating PR descriptions based on your Git commits and your diff, or your commit names, or messages rather, and then your diff, and then generate, oh, this is what I did. And you can have the sentiment of like humorous or informative or just a listicle. And then the other thing is we now do refactoring, which is it's like Copilot basically, same engine that does Copilot. So the refactoring is it works. But I do want to add replies, so that way I can reply back. Cool. And like people asking me questions, like I don't know the answer. I just want to write up like a quick bullet and then ChatGPT make this an answer that makes sense.
I think that's the thing too, is like either breaking that initial friction of writing the email, doing the thing, just getting started has been a huge like personal thing that's helped me out, as well as refining. Like I'm very tangentially thought, kind of oriented. Don't usually come out cohesive in some cases when I get excited, especially. And so it's nice to be able to use that to refine things, or like just, get everything out that's on your mind onto the screen and then refine it and just like reshape it a bit too. So it's fun to have like that little coach in your computer screen.
Yeah, I want to run through some data too as well, because we have the data at open source, like how many PRs have no description, and like be able to like make that a insight.
That or testing again. Testing
yes.
again.
Yeah.
Dot. Yeah.
Or like there's the this is trivial. One of the DevRel at Vercel created the AI commit message generator, and I think it's honestly, if you're an engineer, like this is a fun little project. Like create your own, like run it locally. But yeah, it's just the same thing. It's like I don't know what I just did. Like I did a bunch of code. Now I get diff and then paginate through different stuff. I'm like, okay, this is what I did. Let me write the message. Or I could just be like, hey, let me just like generate this through OpenAI.
That and just like the operational efficiency, I think that's the biggest thing that has my interest peaked right now. Like I'll do summarization, I'll feed it like an article and ask it questions, and like for me it's a lot of that interaction and like you said too, just like I've gotten to work with GitHub Copilot X and getting the chance to like see what.
You have access?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Didn't give me access yet. I've got the CLI Copilot. And I've got a couple other GitHub Next projects that they opted me into, but I haven't got the Copilot X yet.
I've gotten to play with blocks so far. That's been interesting.
Yeah, blocks is pretty cool. I'm still figuring out I have a use case, which I want to be able to leverage blocks so I can just have like just data that updates in my README consistently.
I'd love that for like that. That's still on my backlog. Maybe ChatGPT or Copilot will help me with that this weekend. Is like my about me page, or like the onlydole/onlydole on my repo. But I'd love for a chance to be able to do that and even keep track of where folks are going. I feel like no one. So we know of like fantasy sports and things, but I feel like we have nothing like that for people in tech switching jobs. It's like, wait, they went there? Okay. Oh yeah, you get points. So you made that better.
Yeah, I did notice a few of my former colleagues at GitHub at new places. And as I reached out to them, they're like, "Oh, you're not there anymore." Okay, it would be cool to have like a LinkedIn automation and be like, "Hey,"
I would love that. Yeah,
because they did announcements, but it'd be cool if I could just get like a digest.
That, or even just like my address book, like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna send you an email and you're not gonna get it because you're not there." And would love that.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, I'm all for the innovation. Like I feel like I've hit my peak as engineer, and like I'll still continue to do things, but I know what I like and I know how to do things. And someone needs to convince me to do the next thing, and AI is that thing. It's the Chrome extension I mentioned, like I built it with a couple interns last weekend.
Wow.
And I built the first step, and I was like, "Hey, interns, can you like polish this?" And we ended up getting it done 2 days ago.
Wow.
And it was really just like more just like figure out the user interaction. It wasn't actually the connection to OpenAI, which is it's amazing, also scary. Like OpenAI is a company, and we're all feeding it all data to figure it out. So I do like tools like Replicate, Hugging Face as well. Like the ability to share models amongst friends. That's the thing I like about the current situation of AI. So definitely worth checking out the other models that are out there that are shareable.
I love that one article that came out of Google, and just like that vote of confidence. That was one of my worries too, is thinking back to OpenAI. It was like the initial thought was to give everyone their own AI models to be able to train and learn, and like make it truly an extension of you. And so seeing that really is what the thought leaders and other people that are very close to that space are saying makes me really optimistic that like, okay, cool, I can make, Taylor AI at some point in time, and like have it give me some really good book recommendations, or like things that I'd be prone to do. And there's a event I went to, Stripe Sessions, and Sam Altman was there and talking a little bit about this. And I got the privilege to sit next to somebody working at Microsoft on a couple AI projects, and they said that there's like a Hugging Face meetup where they had a like networking AI kind of like project that they made, where they created agents for people, and they would go interface and network with other agents, and then like say like, this is a good match. Like,
here's your list.
Yeah, it was really funny.
It's not bad. It's a conference up in San Francisco called SaaStr. I forgot the guy who runs it, but it's there's a bunch of founders and VCs that go and have a huge conference. And the best part about the conference is not even the talks, it's the networking tool where you can like get intros and set up meetings before the conference starts.
That's cool.
And I got to we didn't raise any money from that because it was way too early last year for us. But it was just meeting people, just like not even knowing if I needed that relationship, but just making friends is the best part about the conference, and it's like built into the price of the ticket.
I'm seeing the same thing too with like predominantly executives and other folks that I'm like I still am like pinching myself. I'm like, wait, I just talked to that person from that. Wait, what? That's what they want to do, especially post COVID. Like there is that want to. That's the number one thing I hear is like, wow, it was just great to have that talk. And it's like just that kind of interaction is so powerful. And so networking events is, I think, it's phenomenal. Not to throw shade to anyone giving talks or anything like that too, but being able to say like, okay, I can actually watch this on YouTube after the fact, or take notes, or
the hallway track. That's the best track.
It is. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And so I definitely want to wind down the conversation, but I forgot to ask about the whole incubation process of the CNCF. Like there's legit projects that grow up in this ecosystem. So like, how does that work?
So great question. So when it comes to CNCF projects, folks have to donate them essentially. What you do is if you have a project and it's got a great community and it's like, you feel like it's ready, it can't be something that's vaporware. It can't be something that's like, I hope this, like Taylor's idea.txt is not going to cut it. But something that is kind of started to come about, has a community, and it's bootstrapped. That's a good, that's a good start. There is, I think it's CNCF/sandbox that the Technical Oversight Committee set up now. So it answers questions on what's a good fit, what isn't, and just some things to keep in mind, because they do due diligence on that front as far as looking at projects and accepting them. Once something is accepted as a sandbox project, it is recognized by the CNCF, but it doesn't get marketing benefits, namely in part because there's no IP transfer or copyrights or anything like that. That hasn't happened yet. It's really just training wheels to help us understand one another. The Linux Foundation, CNCF, understand the project, and vice versa. So once, and then every year we'll have like an audit, and we'll kind of like look at the community, look to see if the project is still growing. Does it need to be archived? Does it make sense to keep it in the program, etc. If the sandbox project is going really well, then they will apply to go to the next phase, which is incubating.
Okay.
And so that's when there's that IP transfer, not ports and internet protocol, but like the intellectual property, such that the Linux Foundation can jump in and help out with legal fees and licensing and everything else on that front as problems arise. And we only accept things with like an Apache license, MIT, just like permissive licenses.
Yeah.
So once it gets to that phase, then you get the marketing benefits, and you're able to, you're becoming more legit.
Yeah.
The goal to get to graduated is to get more adoption, to really refine your community, and to diversify the people that are contributing to your project, such that you can guarantee to people, and like guarantee this life cycle isn't just for a blip. It's going to have some really good people at the helm, pun intended.
Yeah. Thank you, Kubernetes.
To carry that forward. Graduation is like, that's when that is past the point of success in my humble opinion. You know, people give you success and accolades the moment that you don't need it, you know. Is a funny quote I heard somebody say once. And so that's very much it for projects. Like, you've graduated, you've really proven yourself, and then you have some of the later adopters adopting those projects. But people looking for newer things, if you want like the nightly build, that's the sandbox kind of thing in most cases. It's mature software, but it's just hasn't been widely adopted, so that vote of confidence isn't necessarily there. Incubating is a lot more certain. Graduating is very, very certain.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Do you take projects from like established companies? Because I know a couple projects at GitHub that like lacking the contribution. I'm sure it's come up on the internally in that conversation though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like one that we were really excited about. I think it was just after I joined. I got to hear about it earlier on. I joined the CNCF March 2022. And I think like within a week or two, I heard that Istio was in talks of potentially coming to the CNCF. So I was like, oh, sweet. Like one of the reasons I joined was to hear the stories of open source. So it was really fun.
Yeah. And to be clear, like Spotify donated backstage. Like Spotify has hands off, no mortar.
Yeah, Intuit with Argo, like all of it. Really,
I didn't know that came out of Intuit.
Really interesting. Really interesting.
It makes sense because like, well, there's like a couple trends I see. Like I see Uber, a ton of people from Uber taking their projects outside of Uber and like working on like startups to build that. I'm sure there's probably a few projects that have gone to either the Linux Foundation or to CNCF as well from Uber, but it's very popular to see people solve a problem and then they share it with the community. And it makes sense that they'd go to Sandbox to Incubated to Graduated.
And it gets boring building the same thing at companies as you make your career moves, or even for other people to like, you know, talk to somebody at dinner and they work at a different company and you're like, oh, shoot, this would solve your problem. It's a bummer. I can't.
Yeah, it's closed sourced. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, now I'm like, okay. Next time I talk to a project, she's like, I don't know what's going to go on. Like,
please,
contributions.
Yeah. Have them come by, we'll chat. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, what's the weirdest project that's gone through the CNCF so far?
Great question. Oof. I'm trying to think. The funnier ones to me, just more like the memeability for being in software and infrastructure for a while, are the vaporware projects, or it's just like Gary's really great idea, or just like not an actual project. But those are interesting. It's interesting to see where the disconnects are. Like sometimes it's like wildly out of band, and then sometimes it is a bummer. It's like it's like it's a project just missing a small little thing. More interesting projects that I'm seeing right now is like there's one that I saw recently. Applying, it was Kate's GPT. So it's that's the first AI I know about, and it's supposed to have like really good SRE data and interactions. I've joked with folks, I really do want to write it, but I'm trying to see if somebody else will first. I'm like projecting and trying to push it off of my plate. But I'd love to see somebody write some kind of operator within Kubernetes so that if you experience errors, it pings ChatGPT to see what the fix is and run it. And just to be comical to see what happens to the cluster. Can it stay up? Maybe it's a game show. Who knows?
To see all the charts up on the screen and just have the popcorn.
Like Prometheus is down. Why? What's going on?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, thanks for the insight too as well.
Of course.
I feel like every time I talk to you, I get more knowledgeable about this whole industry.
There's so much going on. It's just such a fun space to be in. And if you blink, you'll miss something. It's so fun. It's so fun.
But yeah, I'll keep an eye out. I'll continue to keep slurping the Git commits and seeing where the trends are happening within the CNCF. And appreciate you coming out for the chat.
Thank you so much. This is fantastic. Yeah, my brain is full of sauce and open source commits.
I love it. You heard it here. Stay saucy, everyone.